Hi everyone, good Tuesday afternoon and welcome to GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for news, politics, and more here in downtown Providence. I'd like to welcome on my first guest, Hannah Morini with Green Development. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Here we are. It's hard to believe last week of June, waning days of the General Assembly session. Now, Green, the renewable energy company, is looking to advocate for legislation to amend the process by which National Grid would have to review energy projects so that timeframes are adhered to. This would impact the entire renewable energy onshore community, yes?
It's true, but it's actually not at all new legislation. The only thing that this, I would almost call it an adjustment of legislation, does is it closes loopholes that have really been taken advantage of by the utility company over about the past year. This is just a slight modification of the bill that was passed 2 or 3 years ago by the General Assembly, which has really helped to not even expedite, just really streamline and clarify the process that renewable energy companies have to go through in order to build projects and really grow their businesses here in Rhode Island.
And how important is it for renewable energy projects to have sort of a stated time frame, an anticipated time frame, as far as it impacts their bottom line, impacts jobs, impacts the deliverables of when they anticipate something was supposed to be delivered, and then it gets protracted when, again, National Grid might not be meeting those review deadlines?
It means everything to the goals of our state, to the success of our green economy. We've seen jobs in Rhode Island in the clean energy industry grow every single year exponentially since they started keeping track. But without being able to depend on the dates that are posted, essentially in law, it delays work. I mean, we have projects now, for example, that were supposed to start construction this summer. If you look at the actual timelines, for example, 90 days to complete a utility impact study. We have projects that have been an impact study for a year. Projects that we would have had 30 people working on beginning this summer, for example, at a solar project in Johnston. It's just not happening because of these delays that we've seen. So it means everything.
And what have we heard from National Grid as to their response as to delaying, protracting the process, if you will?
We've heard a little bit about impacting ratepayers, which just really isn't the case. One of the things that the legislation seeks to do is actually it requires the utility company to post a full example of what renewable energy companies have to do in order to submit a complete and successful application. If I was to go online right now and follow the template on National Grid's website, there would probably be 30 deficiencies wrong with it. It's just not up to date. So what this does is it increases the efficiency on both sides of the application, on the companies that are submitting the application, and also the people at National Grid that are reviewing it. I mean, if someone at National Grid has to touch an application twice, that means they're paying someone twice to do one job. So this makes a lot of sense for everybody, including the ratepayers of Rhode Island.
Let's talk a little bit, I mean, this isn't government regulation. This pertains to Grid's role within the process and the British conglomerate of National Grid. And 94% of Rhode Island's electricity comes from out-of-state gas-powered plants, so to speak.
It's true.
So there's a little balance here of a local industry looking to move forward and sort of being held up again by an international powerhouse, if you will.
It's true. I mean, the people who interact with the industry in Rhode Island are, excellent. They're doing their absolute best. I do think that there at times it seems to be a mismatch between the goals that Rhode Island has to move our green economy forward and keep bolstering jobs and just economic growth in the industry, and a very large regulated utility company that it's hard for large regulated companies to change. They're just naturally not that limber. So oftentimes some of these the items that would streamline process and make it work better for everybody, they work best done through legislation.
And as you mentioned, again, this amends an existing
It does.
a piece of legislation. So it's a tweak, if you will. Now I say
It's just cleaning it up, essentially. Really, it's the same exact law that was passed a couple of years ago, but it's just making sure that those timelines that have been, a lot of projects are getting arbitrarily put on hold, and it just really clarifies those timelines and makes sure that there's proper and required transparency between the two parties during the process.
And do you envision this is how the democratic process is to work, if you will? Again, a piece of legislation passes, but after seeing it in action, saying, well, here's what's working and here's not what's working.
It's true.
And here's how we can make it better.
Yes. So the first year that the legislation was in place, timelines were working as they should. So I would say probably, 4 or 5 months until you get to a contract from the utility company. Over the past year, best case scenario, that timeline has doubled, if not tripled or quadrupled in some cases. So what it's doing, it's really upholding what the law meant to do in the first place, which is create transparency for the renewable energy industry and keep the economy growing in Rhode Island.
So would you say this is the focus of Green up at the State House at this moment?
Yes, our company hasn't been involved at all at the State House this year. This is the one thing that really is, we've heard from numerous developers, many of whom won't go to the State House for fear, frankly, of retribution. This is really the only issue that we've been active in this year because it's the one thing that is truly crippling the green energy industry in Rhode Island this year.
Well, currently before the Senate, looking to see it move on the House side as well, as we said, these last days of the session.
Right.
Wanted to have you here, tell Rhode Islanders a little bit more about the issue. We'll include those bill numbers as well if you were watching here right now. But Hannah Morini with Green Development, I appreciate your taking the time to come
Thank you
in.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. And don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with a public affairs campaign here on GoLocal Live in just a moment.